We live in a very unique moment in history where every version of success, every story about success that society has told for the last 200 years has been exposed to be, if not outright false, at least not uncomplicated, at least not without excess. There is no version of success that anyone has ever been presented with that doesn't involve some deep trench where you can get lost in its own consumption and its own craving. There's no one who's ever said this any better than David Foster Wallace. He gave a commencement speech at Penn University in 2005. And I'm just going to quote it because it's so good. So he said, in the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is no such thing as atheism. Everyone worships. And the only choice we get is what we worship. He says, if you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning, then you'll never have enough. Never feel you have enough. It's the truth. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure, you will always feel ugly. And when your time and age starts showing, you will die a million deaths before they finally do you. Worship power, you will end up feeling weak and afraid. You will need ever more power over others to numb you to your own fear. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart. You will end up feeling stupid, fraud, always on the verge of being found out. And the point is not that these things are bad intrinsically. It's that they all become their own all-consuming furies unless we recognize that they have to be only part of the picture. They have to be only part of the story. So this brings me to the third premise, which is that there's a moment to redefine success. And I actually think, and this is where it starts getting exciting for me, that our generation in this room, the millennials or Gen Y or however you want to call it, are doing this in real time without even meaning to. I think that we are witnessing the active redefinition of success in a way that I've never seen looking back through history. So the way that I want to convince you of this, or at least use some evidence, is I want to tell you about a couple of the people that I know, a couple of the biggest sort of shining examples of success. So this is a guy named Alexis Ohanian. You'll see, unfortunately, that a lot of my examples of success have to be my particular Silicon Valley position right now. I apologize in advance. Alexis graduated from UVA as a history major in 2005 and started a little company called Reddit, which within 6 or 7 months of being formed was bought by Condé Nast. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million. So he had a good payday. And Alexis, instead of instantly saying, you know what, I'm going to start another company, and this time I'm going for $1 billion. He applied to be a key fellow. He wanted to go see a different part of the world than he had in that context yet. And he wanted to do it in a way that actually really taught something. Spent 3 months in Armenia as a key fellow. Became more active with that group. And then started something called Red Pig, which is basically an attempt to take geek culture and channel it into social good. So they published recently a book called, of comics called XKCD, which, if you're in the geek scene at all, is like a really sort of passionately loved thing. And all of the profits from that go to Room to Read, which is a San Francisco-based education nonprofit. Summer Rain Oaks graduated our year 2006 from Cornell. She is A model. B, she studies bugs. Pretty weird being her Facebook friend. They're referring to new members of her family, and there's a giant African lily. So she was discovered, she became a model, and she knew from day one that she didn't just want to be a model in a normal way. She wanted to use whatever prestige, power, fame came with that to inspire people, to get them excited about the things that matter to her. So she started something called Eco Model, which was all about the interconnection of fashion and social good. And then she sort of graduated from that and wanted to go even bigger. And recently started something called Source for Style, which is basically like an online marketplace for fashion designers, whether they're indie or huge, to find ethically sourced fashion inputs. This is Ryan Ellis. Ryan Ellis is going to be one of the names that you hear in this generation over and over and over. But a week younger than me. Started his first company when he was like 16. And his company this year is a small to medium-sized business email marketing company. It's not exactly what we like to call super sexy. But they're going to IPO this year. And Ryan is already planning the next set of his life. She intends to be in South America. He wants to solve and unlock local business value, local entrepreneurship, both social and for-profit entrepreneurship. And he started something called the Humanity Fund, where in the last 2 years or so, it's time of that contact. He can start to experiment with what the best way to do that is. So he's actively funding businesses and activities. 26. Lila, you're going to meet later this week. Lila gave up one of those lucrative management consulting careers because its version of social change, international development, just didn't resonate with what she was actually experiencing. She started something called SomSource, which is, it's easy to think about it just as a success now. It's basically a company that takes low-level tasks from American technology companies and uses them as a way to provide jobs and then training for refugees and for poor women, particularly. I hope that she tells you part of the story. She spent about 6 months living on her ex's couch to get that launched. This is not just something that sort of came easily. BizNow, LA BizNow. How many of you guys know what Summit Series is? If you don't, you will soon. Summit Series is kind of like TED for under 35s. And it's come out of nowhere and become really overnight the must-attend event if you're sort of young and engaged in entrepreneurial or social entrepreneurial. And BizNow was 25. And he just started and he was like, I get my generation and I want to create the best party that creates that social bonding experience that Matt was talking about. And they're killing it. They're really, really killing it. Matt and I were both on a cruise ship 2 weekends ago, which was like a work event. With the roots as a housemate. These guys know how to do it. The thing that's amazing is that the roots weren't just there like hanging out. They were talking to social entrepreneurs and dropping their iPads everywhere. Do a couple more. This is Barbara Bush. You may remember her from The Bushes. She's George's daughter. She's also an amazing social entrepreneur who started something called Health, which is basically TFA, but for health students. Doing amazing things, placing students around the world in health things before they go into medical school. Not just American students, but also Rwandan students. They're major partnerships and partners now. Andrew Mason, this is my favorite one, because it's just so ridiculous. How many of you guys know Groupon? How many of you guys knew that the founder of Groupon was a Northwestern music major? All right, good. Started as The Point, was a social action platform that came out of Andrew's desire to see something a little bit different about how nonprofits organize resources. Got some venture funding. Finally, when his investors were like, holy crap, dude, you have to do something that will make us money. You're like, well, I'll start a daily deal site. Oops, fastest growing company in the history of the planet. And the important thing about Andrew as it relates to this story is not even so much that throughout his entire Groupon experience, he's found ways to intersect social good, including saving a company last year, which is another story that I can tell you at some point. But when it comes to the idea of sort of following your passion and thinking differently about money, this year, some of you may know, Groupon passed on a reported $6 billion acquisition. They did that for a bunch of reasons, but one of them is just they believed that they could make the company even bigger and better and a more important force for good and for commerce. Independent. And it's a real question when you're a young person thinking about giving away. His portion probably would have been in your neighborhood, $1 billion. But he had given an interview a few months earlier because they had taken a round of funding where sometimes the founders takes money off the table. That's where during a funding round, before an exit event like an IPO or a sale, founder sells a little bit of their stock in order to make some money. Andrew did that. They asked him, why would you do that? He was like, look, this is actually his quote. He said, money is a binary problem in life. Either you have enough or you don't. I had an ability to solve that problem, so I did it. And the thing that's amazing to this about me is that it's very easy to sit thinking about our nonprofits or $60,000 in college debt. And sort of be like, oh wow, there's between $20 million and $1 million. That's not really the point. The point is that being able to be self-contained enough to be able to divorce of the traditional lust for wealth enough to turn down that sort of money. Pretty amazing thing. God, there's so many examples. But anyways, let's more about my dog. The point is that, like I was saying, I was making an argument that these guys are redefining success in real time. And I think that there are a couple main reasons for that. One is that they simply don't fetishize golf the same way